I grew up we moved all over. My dad worked for energy. He was the environmentalist, so we were nomads. But I grew up in New Orleans East was like my first home.
Okay.
That's where all my family is from on both sides. My dad's from Ecuador. He's from Guayaquil, Ecuador. I'm first generation American on my dad's side. My mom came from a giant Sicilian family. And both my mom, very loud. The only way you get heard is at the dinner table is who talks the loudest is who gets heard.
Sure.
So I've never been told I'm a quiet person, and I don't think I ever will.
Yeah.
And I just found a way to turn that into a positive.
Sure.
But when I was about, I don't know, maybe about 5 or so, a little bit older than that, we ended up moving to Texas for about 4 years, a little town called Lumberton. But still, when we moved there, and then we ended up trying to get back to New Orleans, the closest we could get was Denham Springs, right side out of Baton Rouge. And even still, like, I never really got the Baton Rouge culture. You know, I never was big on LSU at first for a really long time.
Right.
Because weekends would come, we'd get out of school, we'd pack up, we'd go to New Orleans. So I was still, you know, we'd go to Saints games all the time. So even though we didn't live in New Orleans, I was always in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I very much grew up on the Mardi Gras, the Saints, that culture feels most home to me. It wasn't until I got into like my 20s and, you know, started having, you know, adult friends and started going to LSU games and kind of, okay, I get what this is about. Now,
right.
I absolutely love Spanish Town and LSU games, and we've been living here since I was about 11 or 12.
What was the cause for the move in the first place?
My dad, he worked for energy. It used to be
so it's strictly job related.
Yeah, it was he worked for Nopsy. So when it got bought out by energy, there was a layoff and, you know, consolidating different jobs. So we had to go to Texas to avoid that layoff.
Gotcha.
And just kind of take the job where you could. My parents could not wait to get out of Texas. I loved it because I was always outside, but there was one school, there was a donut shop, a Dairy Queen, one neighborhood, and one apartment complex. That was it.
Yeah.
And for fun, it was let's go to the Circuit City in Beaumont.
Yeah.
So
okay.
they were so used to living in the big city growing up.
Yeah.
It was just very isolating, I think, for them.
Sure.
And they were just, you know, not built for that.
You were talking about your own culture shock. Think about theirs.
Yeah, we moved out because from New Orleans we ended up moving to Covington, and then from there that's when we moved to Texas. And the Covington move, they wanted to build their big house and all that. And then that was, I really think, I mean, I was little, but I really think that was just a big culture shock for them.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I was an adult that I kind of understood that. Because it was kind of bouncing around, you know, leaving friends, and that's where my focus was as a kid, you know, completely self-absorbed.
So opposite ends of the spectrum, as far as your mother's side and your father's go, opposite ends of the earth, I should say, not really the spectrum, but South America and Sicilian. What kind of music is there? Is there a cultural diversity in the house with the music playing?
So I knew you were going to bring up like music in my family, my background.
Absolutely.
I'm a stubborn little kid. I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket when I was little. I was terrible at singing. And my parents, like, I grew up listening to, I think my favorite song is More Than Words by Extreme. I remember being in Covington, being like a little kid in the backseat of my parents' car, listening to that song. That and a lot of Eric Clapton, a lot of James Taylor.
Okay.
Nobody in my family was really musical except for my mom's sister. I remember being little and seeing her with a little amp and a little microphone and a guitar, and she's probably one of the most eclectic people that I know. And that's my nanny Allison and my godmother, and she was a stand-up comedian when she was younger. Went from that to owning like a preschool to being a singer and just kind of doing everything. And now that she works at an elementary school, she's a gym teacher.
Yeah.
And that was really like the biggest musical influence that I had when I was little.
You're speaking as far as performance or just music that you heard?
My parents listen, like my dad, I love my dad, I know he'll probably see this at some point. But in my dad's office, I remember going to like the Energy Building when I was little. We'd love to ride like on the dry race board and all that stuff. But in the background, you know the music you hear in the elevator?
Yeah.
That's what my dad listened to for fun.
Okay.
It was smooth jazz. And as far as what my mom listened to as far as music, I know she loved her record players. She loved her, like we always had a big old, my granny's old record player in the house. And she would listen to older stuff, which I think is where, I don't remember the specific music she played on it, but I have this love for vinyl, and for all the old music and the pops and the cracks that you hear in it.
Analog sound.
And I don't remember specifically like what she listened to.
No.
But I know that I loved when she would take out the records and put them on. But it wasn't a very music-filled house. I mean, it's not that they disliked music, it just wasn't very much like in the forefront. I don't remember them going to many concerts or, stuff like that growing up. We're gonna go rock climbing or spelunking or whitewater rafting.
Yeah.
They were about those outdoor experiences. I think I went camping for the first time when I was a couple months old. So it was more like get outside, get in nature, listen to the peace, try and find that quiet.
In your dad's defense, though, The Girl from Ipanema was a great track. I don't know if you're familiar. That originated down there.
You said Fernando?
Ipanema.
Oh,
The Girl from Ipanema.
Okay, I thought, I don't know. My dad's name is Fernando, and they had a song called Fernando.
Oh, okay.
That he said he grew up, and I think it came out in the 70s or something.
Yeah.
He was like, he said when that song came out, everybody sang it to me. But,
So you move away, you come back, and the whole time, would you say you were more drawn to music than some of the other members in your family?
Yes.
And how many children, how many siblings did you have?
One. I have one sister.
Okay.
She's 6 years younger than me. And I don't know what it was. But I was the kid. I remember going when they had the costume contest in City Park. And you get to dress up, and I was just dressed as a witch. It wasn't anything spectacular, but they were doing a costume contest. I was about 4 years old. I remember I went up to them and I'm like, "Hi, my name's Erica. This is my address. These are my parents. I just want you to remember me." And apparently I got honorable mentions because of my outgoingness, I guess. Yeah. Music was kind of that vessel that got me there, but I've always had that, I just wanted to do something that mattered, something that stood out.
Sure.
And I was not the greatest singer. I remember being in 6th grade and I went to St. Jean Vianney in Baton Rouge, small Catholic school. And I remember getting up and singing Rocking Around the Christmas Tree in front of my class. It was terrible. Yeah. The kids laughed. It was It was awful. I remember the 7th grade class was like peeking in the window, and it was awful. And
so how did that impact you though? I mean, obviously at the moment negatively, but did it really resonate, or did you say I'll try again?
Though. That's the thing. It should have.
Right.
It should have, but I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna keep doing this again.
Yeah.
With the flea market out in Gonzales. They used to do Prairieville or Gonzales, wherever it is. They used to do like a karaoke contest. I'd get up there and I'd belt my little heart out, and that was terrible.
Yeah.
And I think I'm more stubborn than talented. Like now when people say, oh, they're like, oh, you're in a band? Oh, well, do you sing well? I tell them, no, I don't. I'm just really good at pretending. Yeah. I'm just stubborn.
These initial experiences that you had, you really enjoyed the act of performing.
Yes.
Did you notice anything else that was going on while you were performing?
Oh, I was very aware. Like
So
even
you
now
did.
when I'm on stage, I'm like, I don't see the crowd as a whole.
Yeah.
I'm looking at individual experiences.
Okay.
I'm
And even
looking
back
at
then, you
facial-
were doing this.
Yes. As I'm singing, as I'm whatever it is talking, I'm watching these faces and
Yeah.
I'm seeing these reactions, and that's kind of how I gauge. Okay, well maybe I should do this or more than
Sure.
this. So more than it discouraging me, it was more of a learning experience of okay, well what can I do better? And
At no point it dissuaded you, though. It was just
No.
it was just
it
helping
should
you
have.
along.
It should have.
Well, I wouldn't say should have. I think for many it does make them question themselves. But instead of questioning yourself, you were questioning the art, just kind of hone
Like
your
okay,
skills.
well,
You know.
yeah.
Right. What
Like
can
how
what can
do I get
sharpen?
better?
Sure.
And then I remember very, very specific. So we traveled a lot because what my dad did for a living, he was an environmentalist. He traveled all over, the Southeast, and so we went with him a lot. Like stay, whether it was, we would go stay at family's house or go with him to the hotel, and there's so many hotel swimming pools that I
Sure.
remember as a kid, and we were staying in one hotel. And I remember my mom was getting ready to go somewhere. She was washing her hands or something. And I was, when I was like 12, I brought a little bit of Texas back with me. I loved Leanne Rhymes. When I was little, I loved Leanne Rhymes because she was young.
Sure.
And so I love Leanne Rhymes and Charlotte Church. And because it was really relatable as far as somebody who's young, who can, have these big, powerful voices.
Mm-hmm.
And because I always sung like way up here. And just kind of that nasally voice, and it was this one time, and that's what kind of clicked with me is, hey, you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Is I started singing something, and my voice dropped down, and I started singing more in like as soulful as a 12-year-old could be, this
Okay.
kind of more, a little bit deeper of a voice than I'd ever really used, and it was just like a parrot I would mimic.
Yeah.
And my mom comes around the corner. She goes, "Wait, what was that? Was that the radio?" I was like, "No, Mom, that was me." She goes, "No," and she's like, "It was a different tonality than I had ever used." And she was like, "Oh," and I think it clicked with them too, because not long after that, they started putting me in voice lessons,
Nice.
and so I realized I don't sing up here. I
You
sing.
found your vocal range.
Yes.
Yeah.
I definitely have more of an alto, and like those influences as I got older were more Etta James, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald, and that had a lot. I didn't know that I liked all that until I met my first voice teacher.
Okay.
And she made me so mad because I wanted to sing all these pop songs, contemporary stuff that I knew.
Right.
And she's like, "No, you're gonna do Stormy Weather." I think it was Bobby Brown, like the original, like Stormy. And no, you're gonna do this for your first concert. And I was so upset.
Yeah.
Because she gave me this CD of all these Gershwin songs, and by the time I was done, I was just absolutely in love. And it's kind of like I found that little place where I was most comfortable.
This was also at 12 years old that you started?
Yeah, but yeah, between like 12 and 13 is kind of when all that happened.
And how long were you in voice lessons for?
On and off. Then I ended up studying at LSU through some vocal coaches, and I remember through those vocal programs, they're like, no, you don't need to sing here. That's gonna make you tired. You need to sing up here. So I would try, and to me, it was just exhausting. And it was, and I know you have to work on your vocal range, but it wasn't natural for me to sing in that head voice, sing way up here.
Was it coming from a different place in your body?
Yes.
Yeah.
It felt like singing here, and then when I would, sing more in that alto, more that blues, it more came from my heart.
Yeah.
Which, again, you don't understand the whys that you feel that way until you're older, but there's a difference in singing rehearsed music and then singing from your soul.
Sure.
And that's something that you learn about yourself as you go. So I think what's really cool about music, about the arts, is that you're really not so much you're learning a talent, you're learning and discovering yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of takes on, you started as one thing, and it takes on a whole life of its own.